Welcome to the BeaBossCoaching mini podcast series 9 to Grind. In this podcast series, I will be talking with women of color, BIPOC, and queer entrepreneurs who are both juggling a 9 to 5 and running a business at the same time. In this series, I aim to shine a light on the many different ways that people balance their corporate careers with their entrepreneurial aspirations. Each episode will delve into their challenges, successes, and most importantly, what they do from the time they get up in the morning until they go to bed at night. I know firsthand how tough this balance act can be since I left my job a little too soon and I learned lessons along the way. I hope that with this series, you can get as much insight and strategies that will help you in your personal entrepreneurial journey and corporate career. Thanks for tuning in, and I can't wait for you to hear from these incredible entrepreneurs who have shared their time and their wisdom. I hope you enjoy. Okay, we are on. Hi, Yessica.
Hi.
I am so excited for you to be here. Thank you for giving me the time to do this series where we talk about how different business owners run their business and also have their full-time job. And I remember seeing you and meeting you and thinking for the first time when you talked about your business, I was like, that is so cool. Like the fact that you create your own feminine products, which we will get into, and then you also work. I think one thing I don't really know is where you work, so I'm excited to learn more about you. But let's start with your name and the name of your business, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So I'm Yessica Villatoro. I go by Jess, Jess, and I am the founder of Jess Period. But most importantly, I am a menstrual health advocate and a menstruator myself. And I do juggle the life between being a small business owner or a new entrepreneur, very much a new entrepreneur, and managing my corporate America job.
Yeah, that's incredible. So thank you so much. Yeah, so I love Jess Period. I think what you do, and also not just the fact that you have a product, but that you are an advocate for menstrual health. And I love when you said I'm a menstruator, because I never had considered myself as such. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a menstruator too. So I think I love that you reclaim that as a way to advocate for people who menstruate. So can you tell us more about your business and what it does and how it serves the community?
Yeah. So I started Just Period. In Just Period, I make a line of handmade menstruation products. So specifically pads, because I was really never taught on how to use a tampon, and really all of the women in my family only have used pads. That was kind of like the only menstrual product that was introduced to me, and I stuck with it. And now I make those from my home along with panty liners. So that's why I call it a line, because I have kind of assortments of period related product.
Okay, awesome. And what inspired you to start this line of menstrual period products? What motivated you to start that?
So I actually just got asked this question last week at an event. The question was like, what was the catalyst for starting this?
Mm-hmm.
And I reflected in that moment, like, really, it was many stages in my life as a young girl and growing up to adulthood and like fully coming into my 30 years and realizing like many things in my life had actually triggered Just Period. Recently, I did go through a life-changing experience at the age of 30, but it was kind of more an accumulation of many things. Basically, it's just like the bomb erupted when I was 30, but it was many things growing up. I'll start with like my youngest years as a teen. I suffered through period poverty, and I didn't know period poverty existed. I didn't know the term existed until I was 30. So that also made me realize that I had little control over my body and something so personal like my period that I didn't even own to it. So series and events of womanhood and growing up girl, a brown girl, cultural stigma, just many things that went into my why of Just Period.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you were able to find a way to address the changes that were happening for you. And I'm sure that you had a moment that were like, I'm not the only one, that had experienced all of these changes and wanted to bring that to other menstruators. So I'm glad that it came to be this line of products. And okay, now that you've been in business, I'm curious when you started this product and how did it fit into your current life? I guess we can go into the fact that you do have a full-time job. So, to the extent that you can or even want, can you tell us what your full-time job is currently right now?
Yeah. So I've been in supply chain now for 12 years, I believe, between purchasing and planning. And now my role has changed into being a program manager within supply chain, either purchasing or planning, but more as a project approach, managing programs and such, but still within supply chain. I work for a company that makes electric vehicles, specifically trucks. And I hope
Mhm.
that's a big hint to tell you what the brand is.
Okay.
That's my 9 to 5. It is a very exciting market to be in. It is very much a startup, but it comes with its own challenges. And my background had been mostly in aerospace, so it was a shift to me to move from aerospace, airplanes, to move into the vehicle, the automotive industry. And to top it off, it was the electric vehicle industry, which is very new still.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow. And so you've been doing that for 12 years. And
Supply chain 12 years, but in the EV industry, I've been there the last 3 years.
okay, all right. And then recently now moved into project management within the supply chain.
Yep.
Okay, that sounds very exciting. It sounds like there's a lot to do. There's a lot going on. And I'm curious then how, when, as you were transitioning into project management and then began Jess Period, what was that like for you? What did you think about when you were thinking about Jess Period and how it would start to fit into your current life?
Yeah, so I do have to say that there's big benefit, and even I would call it a privilege to be working from home because that cuts out a lot of commute time, a lot of time that maybe, for example, if I went to an office and then I had to do like my 30 minutes or my 1 hour of lunch, that's like another hour embedded on my work schedule that I can actually allocate now to my business because I don't have to commute. I don't have to go to an office. So now all of those hours go back to me that I can be productive for Just Period. So I think that has been like the biggest advantage and what really allowed me to invest time after my work schedule is over to Just Period. Because I'm a early bird. So I start my day very early off, 6 a.m. I'm a coffee drinker. I love my coffee.
Yeah.
I get my coffee. I start reading my emails from work on my phone. Okay, starting my day. What do I need to do first? How is my day going to look like? And then predicting. Okay, I'm going to do all of these tasks during this time. This is how I'm going to accommodate myself. And then this is when I'm going to log off to then invest time in Jess Period. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm fairly new, so I have been doing this for a year and a half now. So I'm still adjusting. I'm still making changes to what works best because also my job goes through changes, and obviously it requires for me to invest more time to learn maybe on the new task that I'm giving, and it takes time away from Just Period. So it's just, for me, it's been kind of balancing, but also making it a mission to invest time in Just Period. Because if I don't give it the priority, I'm just never going to work on it. I'm just going to log off and say I'm exhausted. I'm just going to go to my couch and Netflix and chill, and that's it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, I totally get that. I think one of the things that I struggled with in the beginning was finding the energy at the end of my day when I had a job, a full-time job and still working on my business, is finding the energy to still work on my business. That your early bird helps. Again, also that you are very intentional about planning. It seems like you look at what you have to do for your job and get a sense of how long it takes to kind of do everything that you're doing there. And then when you have time, and would you say when you have time, kind of fit in Just Period time? Do you plug in time for Just Period when the time allows it? Or is it more of a routine and like they're set, it's like pretty set for most days?
Yeah. So last year, my strategy was I'm going to do Just Period when I have time and when I feel like it.
Mhm.
And that did not get me anywhere. I think my year was very slow. I did make significant changes, or actually not changes. I made significant, I guess, milestones in building the business, but I wasn't putting it out there enough. I'd say the last quarter of last year, I kind of let it die a bit because I didn't have a structure. So this year, or at the beginning of last year, I said, you know what, I need to start the year with a plan for Just Period with my job, or else this is just not going to go anywhere. So this year, I made it a goal to at least invest 2 hours daily, whether that was either sewing, like sewing product, or doing administrative items for Just Period. And administrative, it could be anything between improving Shopify, my website, or entering the tickets of the items that money I had wasted, or putting together a video, or editing. Anything that was administrative work, I counted it as a good improvement thing that I made during the day. And I said it has to be 2 hours a day. I chose 2 hours because three, I think would have been excessive because I also have to spend time with my partner. I'm married. We don't have kids, but I guess quality time together is important for me. So 3 hours would have been excessive. Him and his job, me and my job, me just doing Just Period would have been just like, well, when are we going to see each other? When are we going to talk? So 2 hours sounded fair right after I disconnected from my corporate job. I would grab my personal laptop, like literally I would just change laptops, bring the other laptop into my desk and start working on Just Period, or I would move to my sewing machine and just started like sewing materials, testing materials, or whatever it was. And that also gave me the feeling of tranquility, or reduce my anxiety that I wasn't doing anything for Just Period,
Mm.
because anxiety was a big issue for me last year because I wasn't doing enough. Like I was stressing that I wasn't doing, but I also didn't have a routine for it. So
Mm.
now I can check off, oh, I already allocated time for Just Period and I already gave the 2 hours. So I'm good to log off. I'm comfortable to log off because I did some work for it.
Mm.
So it gives me like the mental health piece of it too.
Yeah, yeah. That brings me to this question of how you imagined Just Period growing or building it. And what if you were still working within your corporate job and knowing that those two were happening at the same time, and as you mentioned, also spending time with your partner, which is still very important. I'm wondering if you had perhaps preconceived notions of where Jess Period would be by a certain time, and if that ever was motivating or maybe challenging, knowing that you were still working full time, or were you simply okay with wherever Jess Period was, it would be okay, and that you would simply take your time?
This is a really good question. So when I started, it was more of the idea this is going to be a side thing. This is going to be like my outlet in a sort of way, a healing hobby for me. So my first expectation was, or not even an expectation, my first thought was wherever this leads me, it's okay because this is just a way of healing and helping others, but my job is still like my primary. If we think about financials and things like that, I didn't think that I was going to replace my job with Just Period. And still now I don't see that, but because also there's still a lot of work to do in Just Period to get to that point. But also I guess cultural expectations that you have to have like that corporate job to be secure, and like without it you're probably not going to get nowhere. So I think a mix of that is how I started Just Period, where I wasn't thinking like, okay, this is going to be a money machine. It's rather just going to be an outlet, a hobby, a way to help others in community, and just that. But my perspective has shifted now because now that I've been out and the feedback that I'm getting, I am learning that it is a necessity. It is a a need that people like they themselves are not thinking about it, but when I tell them, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that is so much needed." So now my perspective is changing and it's, wait a minute, this is now no longer a healing thing for me. It's probably going to become a healing thing for others. And it just can't now be a hobby or a low key thing. It
Mhm.
has to transform into something bigger. And
Mhm.
that's where I'm at right now, kind of changing the scope of what Jess Period can be.
Yeah. All right. When you think about how you started this, and I love that you bring up that you realize that it's such a necessity because that is the, I want to say, epitome of a good business is you start something, right? And you perhaps started from necessity for you, but you don't realize how big of a necessity, which can also translate to how big the market, the need, the need in the market for it is until you receive that feedback. And in a
Yeah.
way, you were, maybe you knew, maybe you didn't know that you were testing this, even though it came from a place where it was a, you needed it as an outlet, as a way to heal. And now you realize, oh, actually, this is a gap and there's a lot of need for it. And you're filling that gap. So, classic business is going to fill that gap without you even knowing, right? That that was something that was needed. And now you're really trying to transform that and really fill that need. And so now that you're filling that need, I guess that's what is that what's inspiring you to continue to keep your job and continue Just Period and build it up, and is that what is motivating you?
Yes. So I do very much love my corporate job,
Mm.
but besides bringing me financial stability and the things that I want and need, like food and housing or whatever, it is also what funds Just Period.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I still have to keep it very precious to my heart because it's helping Jess Period in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
Because I personally did not ask for loans or not looking for loans. I am funding myself, and through my corporate job, I am doing that. So I don't have, at least in the short term, I don't have any plans of stepping away from my corporate role until I know that Just Period can sustain itself without the funds from Just Period. Or who knows, if I win the lottery tomorrow, maybe.
You could. Or, there's other financing options, right? You could literally pitch to investors. You have an entire product, you have a product line, you have already identified there's a need. And I, at least in from what I know as a menstruator, I don't see a lot of sustainable menstrual products in the market, especially for, and I'm a big proponent of sustainability and the earth and keeping, I guess what was the word I'm looking for, but having businesses and products that are not harmful to the earth. And so I just think that you're hitting on a lot of different levels here. It's a sustainable product, and you are helping a community of people that didn't even know what they were experiencing, didn't have the language to tell them what they were experiencing when you're talking about period poverty, right? So I feel like, honestly, if you wanted to, you could create a pitch deck and find some angel investors and they'd be very interested. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, right? But I think you're a unicorn, and just putting that in your little brain just in case, there's a lot of options. Of course, it comes with other things to be mindful of, right? They might want a percentage of the company, and once it grows, once it hits. But, right, these are sort of the things that sometimes I'm not sure that I think as brand new entrepreneurs, especially as women and women of color, I feel like these options, sometimes we don't even know about them and we don't even know how big it can get. And so while your full-time job is certainly a financing option and a great one, there's other options too if you wanna dream big or figure out how big Jess Perry can get, you know? So, but going into the question of the hour, and really, I know you alluded a little bit to it in the beginning around waking up at 6 a.m. So if you have days that look different, go to both days. I want to know how you currently manage your day, having both your full-time job and Jess Period. And what does it look like from when you first get up in the morning to when you go to bed at night?
Yeah. So sometimes I even wake up earlier than 6 a.m. I even say like 5:30. I was really in a habit of actually waking up at 5 earlier this year and then immediately starting exercise and then coffee, but it was becoming unsustainable because I wasn't sleeping enough. So now I'm like more between 5:30 and 6. The first thing that I do when I wake up is ask for my coffee. Both my husband and I were both early birds. He loves coffee as well. He has a fancy coffee machine that I don't understand, so I tell him like, just give me my coffee. That's all I need. I don't even know how he clicks on that little machine, but I have my coffee early in the morning. That's like my first thing. Like, don't talk to me if I haven't had my coffee because it's just not going to go well.
Right.
For me, it's also important to take a minute to actually get into my day. So like I sit on my couch with a blanket, I drink my coffee, and then I slowly start pulling out like my phone. I go on Outlook, I go on Slack, that's my work Slack, and then I start seeing like what is needed for me during the day. Do I need to book any focus time to get my job done? Because it does happen that sometimes we just have so many meetings back to back that there's no time to actually do the work. So sometimes I book myself like focus time to actually do all my tasks. I'm also like a checklist freak. So I have my digital standard, I call it, of everything that I need to do in my job from Monday to Friday. And like I have a list of every day of everything that needs to get done. And then I slowly add additional tasks that come about, because as we know, like things change, and I add those things like kind of onto my agenda whenever I can, especially like during 11 a.m. to 1. There's a lot of meetings or workshops that happen related to Jess Period. I mean, you're in the same networking events that I am at, that the meetings are usually during that time. So I try to find like ways of how maybe I can invest that time and maybe replace it later in the day. And I still count it as part of my 2 hours for Jess Period. So instead of doing them at the end of the day, I am plugging them in like during 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. or 12 a.m. And then obviously I replace that time later on if I haven't finished my work. And really a lot of the benefit that I have with my job is that I no longer have a leadership role. So nobody reports to me, and I am the owner of how I manage my time and how my tasks get done, or if I can move things here and there to accommodate things for Jess Period. So I'd say I usually log on to work on my computer probably like 6:30. I come run some reports. I leave them running. Maybe I go back to the kitchen, have some breakfast, but then I'm fully on at 8 a.m. for my corporate job.
Okay.
And then I might disconnect between, like I said, from the time frames of 10 to 1. Those are like usually the times, but I'll disconnect for an hour or maybe 30 minutes, depending on what's going on, and then connect again, and then disconnect probably five in a day. And then I jump to Jess Period activities. That is mostly Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. On Wednesdays, I dedicate no time for Jess Period, and I kind of have a faster day because that day I do need to go into the office to meet with my coworkers. So my day even starts earlier. Those days I probably do wake up like at 5:35. I do a little bit of an exercise on my walking pad, get my coffee, get my breakfast to go, and then I commute to Orange County. And then in the afternoon, I'm just like very exhausted of the drive and really of seeing a lot of people that it's hard for me to work on anything Jess Period because I have been really consumed during the day. So Wednesdays, I try to not program things that are significant for Jess Period unless I really have to. Actually, this week there was a very important meeting on Wednesday, and I was at the office. So what I did, instead of taking lunch, I hopped on that meeting, but I was also multitasking, doing my job. I was like
Mm.
listening while I was working. So that's another, I guess, way to go for people who are entrepreneurs and are having to manage their corporate jobs. If if you if you're able to manage mentally multitasking, I mean, that's a great advantage, right? And then Saturdays and Sundays, I would say, is where I dedicate more time to Jess Period.
Mm.
Because I can like literally probably go all day doing Jess Period things. And sometimes I'll just invite my husband to come in here so we can spend time together. I have a little studio here.
Mhm.
And then I just tell him like, or help me cut fabric. And then we talk while he's cutting fabric. Or I'm sewing and he's just like in here, or just like things like that to spend time together. So my schedule does vary depending like kind of the day of the week and where I see a benefit of moving my 2 hours assigned to Just Period earlier in the day.
Okay. All right. Wow. That sounds so nice too. The fact that you bring your husband in to just be in the presence of you while you're working on Just Period. That sounds really nice. I usually, when I'm working, I'm like, don't come in here. Just stay out. Close the door. And there's days where when my husband, because I work from home, so and he works from home, so we live in a very small apartment, and I'm in the bedroom, he's out in the living room. And I take advantage when he goes to the office, I stay here all day because 2 days out of the week, I work with my dad at our shoe repair business. And so the days that he's here, I go with him. And so there's only really one day that we're both here. And then the weekends. But sometimes on the weekends when I am trying to get something out or whatever, I have to do it alone. So I like that you bring in your husband. You're like, let's spend time that he helps you, even with making the product and cutting fabric. That sounds lovely, actually. Oh, that sounds so nice.
But
Okay.
sorry, it's not that way like all of the time. Like when
Yeah.
I'm doing administrative stuff, I do need him to not talk to me or else I'm just gonna get distracted. It's
Yeah.
just in tasks where I can just say, just come in or just watch me, or I'm about to finish, just come and we'll start talking about house stuff or things that we have to do, but while I'm multitasking with Jess Period.
Yes. And one thing I'm curious about is I know you had mentioned that you had like admin related tasks and then you had the creation of the product, right? Cutting
Yeah.
fabric. And so is that how you compartmentalize the tasks, and how do you allocate or figure out how much time to give to admin and how much time to give to making the product?
Yeah, so at the beginning, when I was really investigating and testing out the fabrics, I had to invest a lot of time in like sewing and sewing and sewing and sewing. Now it's just making the product because I've landed on like the fabric that I want to use, that I feel comfortable with. So now I'm more, when I say I'm going to sew, is more like, okay, I have an order that I need to fill. I'm going to fill this order and I'm going to take it to the postal service. Or those times of investing a lot of time sewing and sewing and sewing endlessly kind of have halted, where now it's on it as needed. So now really my strategy has changed, and now that I'm trying to grow, has turned more on, I mentioned earlier, editing my Shopify or setting up my website or whatever. Kind of like that also has stopped, and now my activities have changed. So to answer your question, I don't have set allocation for something that I'm always going to do. Is more as, what does my business need at this time? That is what I'm going to work on. So, for instance, right now that I've set the foundations of the business, now like my next step is building a client list or a newsletter or pushing marketing. So now it's more of, what does the business need at this point? That's like where my attention is going to go into. Or
Mm.
if I'm participating in an event or something, like how am I prepping for that really? So I don't have it like set in stone. I'm always going to do this Monday to Friday, Saturday or Sunday. No, it's like what the business needs at some point. What I would say is that what I try to keep more structured is like my content. I try to plan my content during the week, and then I try to film during the weekend because that's like what consumes more time that I don't feel I have enough time or the mental capacity to do it during the weekday that I just leave it for the weekends.
Okay. Well, I really like this strategy of kind of seeing in the moment what you need and going with that and sticking to that because I feel like sometimes there's a lot of overwhelm when you look at everything at the same
Yes.
time. And so would you say that that's sort of the best way to keep that overwhelm low for you?
For now, yes. For now that I'm just starting, I think this is the way to go because if I try to work at there's so many aspects of a business. So if I try to work at everything at once, it's just not enough. And since I'm doing everything myself, I think yeah, I'm just gonna get it's gonna have the contrary effect of the outlet that I initially started with, then now it's just going to be a burden. But I do firmly believe that once Jess Period has grown to a point where, okay, maybe we have our client base or like the website is doing good on its own or social media is doing good on its own, then I do see a total need of structure where, like, okay, probably Mondays you have to do this, Tuesdays you have to do this, each month you have to do this. Like, discipline is important. So I don't want to give the wrong message like, oh, just do everything when as they come. No, 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 don't. I mean, this works for me now, but in
Mm-hmm.
the long term, I know that's not sustainable and not scalable. So I would try to shift into a more standardized approach. And given my background is in supply chain and I've been part of launching companies, I know that even though it's a small business, I have to set processes in place and like a guidebook on how it would look like. Even if I try to get an employee on here, like how are they going to know what fabrics to cut or how to package an order? You know, that will become important at that point. It's just right now, it's not relevant yet.
Yeah, yeah. I really love that. I love that you said that because sometimes we don't know what we need to work on because it's so new. Being an entrepreneur is so new. Building a business is so new that we think everything is important. We don't know where to focus. So I like that you know what's important now and what will be important later in the future, and that you're aware of what that would look like, but that's not where you're currently at right now. And so you sort of know how to hone in your time and your energy to what is the focus, to where your current stage of business is now. And so I think that's a very important skill to have because when you're brand new to entrepreneurship and the fact that you're in a corporate setting, you know, that's a very structured setting. And so when you start building your business and you're starting from scratch and everything that you're doing is it feels important, it's hard to create a structure on that on the business side of things. How do you create structure there when you're doing it all yourself? And so I'm glad that you focus on very specific things and where you're currently at and what you're currently needing. And then as you grow, making those assessments and taking the time to kind of figure that out as you go along because you're still moving forward. And I think that that's the most important thing because getting stuck when you're feeling overwhelmed is not a good feeling. So yeah, so I'm glad that you said that. But before we start wrapping up, I do want to just kind of get into the end of your day. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about after you log out and maybe have clocked in some just period time, like what do you do at the end of the day? Do you have any wind down routines or anything that you do that helps you end your day?
Yes. So something that I've just recently added, and I think it's the simplest of things, but it does keep me grounded towards me, towards myself, is doing my skincare in the night. So I've never been big like on makeup or anything. Like my mom, like she never used lipstick or like anything in her face. Right now, some of the makeup that I have on is like very just like, the lashes, the what is it, the blush and Carmex. And
Yeah.
that's basically it. So I've really never been into like the beauty or like foundation, anything like that. And in skincare, I just do just like the basic thing, like the cleanser, the toner, the moisturizer, and oh gosh, the sunblock. During the night, I don't do it, but that is just gets me into such a great mood to just get into bed. Like I feel clean. I
Yeah.
feel like it's like the perfect ending to my day. Just like doing that, like I feel fresh, ready to go to bed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And what time do you go to bed normally?
Oof, I go to sleep early.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if
so
you wake up at 5:36, yeah.
so I'm in bed no later than 9.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all right. Well, that sounds great. At least you get your full 8 hours and or 7. I don't know. I'm the same way. I go to bed around 8:39 because after that it's really hard. If I'm up, I'm watching TV or doing something, then it's really hard for me to go to sleep at night. It's like my brain is, oh, we're working. Okay, let's keep going. But I like to stop working around 8:39. So, and I also get up early too. So that's why I asked what time you go to bed, because if you wake up at 6, girl, I know you're going to bed at 8:39.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. This has been so wonderful to get to know more about you and your day and what you do and Jess Period. And I would like to take the time for you to tell us where we can find you, how we can support you, and let us know where we can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. My website is justperiod.com, and my Instagram and TikTok is at justperiod_. And you will see there menstruation education. But if you have any questions related to reusable products, feel free to DM me or send me an email. My email is also available there, but I'll say it here. It's support@justperiod.com, and it's me answering everything. So you'll know it's not a bot or a computer. I will answer everything. If you ever had a question or just wanted to share your period experience, I'd be more than happy to read it. I do get people who just like randomly share me like their first time period experience, and I really like to hear it. And I like do respond to everybody who messages me. So if you want to do that, go for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. I'm so excited to share this with the world and for people to get to know more about Just Period, and I'm excited to see where Just Period goes. And I'm here for you girls. So whatever you need, any support I can give, I'm happy to be part of it. So thank you so much for letting us
Oh,
know about Just Period and your day. And hopefully there are people out there that can really learn about how to build a product and work at the same time. It's doable. Jessica's doing it. And so I'm so excited to see where this goes.
thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this special episode of the Be a Boss Coaching podcast, the 9 to Grind series. I hope that you learned so much from today's entrepreneur and that you took away new insights and new ways to navigate both your entrepreneurship journey with your professional career. If you have any questions about today's episode or you are interested in learning more about our featured entrepreneur, come on over to the show notes and click on the links to connect. These women are powerful and are ready to give you their own tips and advice to help you in your entrepreneurship journey. And of course, you can also reach out to me. I am Bia. I am the founder of BeaBossCoaching, and I help women of color, BIPOC, and queer entrepreneurs find their own confidence in their entrepreneurship journey like a boss. So come on over to BeaBossCoaching.com. Take a look at the website, what we offer, the freebies that we have, and any other podcasts or blogs that you're interested in. You can even schedule a complimentary call. I can't wait to get to know you. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you in the next video.